Hey guys, Don here with the $1,000,000 Minute. When I go over, this was a Tuesday I'm talking about, and there were 21 appointments. There were 2 openings, and I think actually one got filled, so I think there was just 1 opening for the day. Kind of my big thing that I did in terms of to help fill the funnel. This is a term I learned from Dan Kennedy. You always want to fill the funnel or do something to help your practice grow each and every day. And so this day, I had a patient that came in for an ingrown toenail. I asked her where her nail salon was, and they didn't really refer her over, but they said to go see a podiatrist because they couldn't do it, or she came in to see me because it kind of got ingrown. So I called her up on the phone and I asked, "Hey, do you have anyone that you refer your foot problems to that come into the salon?" And she did not, and I just introduced myself, and I wrote up a little letter. If you guys want this letter, just send me an email, don@podiatrypracticemastery.com. I can show you how I introduce myself, and there's a couple of pictures I put on the bottom. I put an ingrown toenail, wart, and nail fungus, because those are the main 3 things I'm thinking that they can send me for the most part, and finding a way to kind of keep in touch with them. So that was the main kind of marketing caveat, and I guess the main gap I found in my my treatment, because I always like to share the things that are going well and things that aren't going so well. I was listening to Alex Hormozi. He's a guy that has a podcast about like marketing and business. And one thing he talked about is affiliates. And he said, with affiliates, you really need someone to go to keep up with them so that they'll keep giving you clients. And I think I don't want to talk about affiliates because we don't have affiliates, but we do have referral doctors. And I think that's something that I think we just assume that they're going to keep giving to us. And as I'm printing out these lists, or downloading these lists of who are our top referral sources, there are some that give like a proportionately amount more referrals than others. And so I've been calling these clinics and saying, "Hey, do you have like a referral list of who you refer to? And am I on that list?" And usually I am. And if all the doctors aren't sending to our office, I'm wondering why. And so those are the ones I'm kind of reaching out to, trying to make friends with. But what he recommended. And I agree. I think me doing it is kind of fickle, and it would be better to have a kind of like a referral person. In the past, we've talked about this as like a practice rep, and so I don't know if anyone here actually has one. If you do, please send me an email. Just let me know kind of how it's working for you, how you pay them. The one thing I struggle a little bit is with how to pay them. I'd love to pay them commission, and what he recommends, like for example, is let's say your product produces like $6,000, right? So let's say each patient is worth $6,000. So every new patient, they would pay them like 10% of that, or like $600, which is a good amount for that referring person. We have a little bit more of a challenge of tracking it. I was thinking I guess I could track 1 year to another year upon how many referrals we're getting, how much we get from each person. So if there's like a new one that goes up, we could pay them based on that. Or you could just pay them an hourly rate. But it doesn't really motivate people, especially in sales. They're more motivated by numbers and getting out there. So I haven't figured out a great way to do that. Okay, for the day, first patient was a matrix follow-up. This was a 39-year-old female. She's doing fine. I think this is one that I probably didn't need to see back. Next patient was a 65-year-old patient. He has a flexible right fourth hammer toe, so we talked about doing a flexor tenotomy. He also got x-rays, he had a limb length discrepancy, and he had a blister on his foot due to like the hammer toes. So we talked about doing the procedure. It's not really bothering him all that bad. It was the blister was kind of on the top of the toe from rubbing, so I talked about shoe changes, and he'll come in or come back if needed if he wants to straighten out that toe. Another patient was a 69-year-old female that came in for an IND of an ingrown. These are kind of chronic issues, so I made a 3-month follow-up for her, and we're going to plan on doing the matrixectomies at that time. Next patient was a 61-year-old patient. I did a nail sample. She had hammer toes, and she had a fracture of the base of the phalanx, so I put her in a cam boot. And I will see her in about 6 weeks to see how that fracture is healing in. Another patient was a 37-year-old. He was here for Lamisil follow-up. He had my first three months, but then he didn't get the booster, and so not all of it, but like most of his nail sample came back. And so I'm going to see him back in 3 months to see how he's doing with that. But he just didn't. I think patients need a little bit more than the 3 months. Another patient was a Qutenza number 1, so I spent some time explaining to her about how it's going to feel like you have a sunburn on your feet. or it feels like, so it's going to hurt a little bit if you take a hot shower, and it also, like if you get almost if like you drink hot peppers, it's going to be better to drink milk. So like I talked about a milk bath that you could use afterwards. Other patient was a 56-year-old. This was EPAT number 3. Follow-up. So she's feeling 90% better. She's having no pain and palpation. She's doing really well, except when she walks a lot. And I think the main issue is the shoes and the orthotics that she needs. But mostly shoes. A lot of patients I find, they come in at, you probably know the same thing. They come in like wearing like the Pumas or Reebok or Adidas or one of these other ones, and they're just really not fit for doing a lot of walking in. So I talked about shoes. Another patient was a 35-year-old that came in. I did a nail sample. He had some calluses, and we discussed about orthotics due to his hallux limitus. But we'll start with the nail sample. I'll see him back in 3 weeks to go over the next step for that. Another patient was EPAT number 4 to the forefoot. Another patient was a 58-year-old patient that came in. She had some pain to the lateral heel. So she originally had pain to the central heel on the left, and now it's more lateral. I did an ultrasound. It showed a little bit of thickness in there. She's already had 3 rounds of shockwave. She has just 1 point area of pain, so I did a cortisone in that area, and I'll see her back as needed. Another patient was a 44-year-old. I did a nail sample. See them back in 3 weeks. Another patient was a 70-year-old. I did a Lamisil prescription. See her back in 3 months, along with the other things for the terbinafine. Another patient was a 49-year-old. She had a painful bunion. So she's just a pretty 49-year-old girl. She has bunions, but one kind of flared up. I had 2 of these happen this week where they get really flared up, and it's due to shoe gear that are just inappropriate. So I spent a long time talking about shoes. I like Anya's Reviews. It's my favorite website to refer patients to. I also recommend Bilenka, Vivo Barefoot, a lot of these like anatomic or foot-shaped shoes, and patients do well with them. I did a little cortisone as well to that area because I think many times, or both of these this week, they had a little of a bursa in that area to shrink down that swelling in that area. Next patient was a 76-year-old female. She was kind of complex. This was a new patient. On the right side, she had plantar fasciitis, so we did plantar fasciitis number 1 treatment with like meloxicam, night splint, morning stretch. On the left side, she had ankle pain and subtalar joint pain and arthritis based on the x-ray. So I did 2 injections in those areas with cortisone, and I'm going to see her back in about 3 weeks. Another patient was a 42-year-old female. She's had a previous right chylectomy, and she has just diffuse forefoot pain to the right foot, and I did a diagnostic block to the second MPJ. So she had a lot of pain all around kind of the dorsolateral foot. She had pain with range of motion at the second digit, and I didn't know if it was all spurring from that second toe. So I did a block. I don't tend to do cortisone to the second MPJ just because I'm concerned about subluxation and weakening of the whole apparatus in there and causing hammer toes and plantar plate tears. So I did a diagnostic block, and most of her pain went away with that. So what I'm going to order for her is I'm going to order an MRI to see if possibly there's like a plantar plate tear going on there, or something else going on that I'm not seeing that might need to be repaired for her, or doing. We also talked about shockwave, but she wanted the MRI first. There was another patient that came in for a nail sample follow-up, and they got my whole fungal kit. See them in 3 months. This is a 66-year-old. Another 81-year-old patient came in for a partial nail avulsion, and I'll see her back in 3 weeks. And I did a nail sample. That's why I'm seeing her back. Another patient was a wart follow-up. This was a young little girl that I did 2 warts, and they were 100% better at about 3 weeks, almost epithelialized completely. Another was a 44-year-old female for a Lamisil number 1, which they get the Lamisil UV light, things like that. Another was a 70-year-old matrix follow-up, or I did a matrix, and then I'm going to see her back in 3 weeks. In this one specifically, kind of a weird thing happened to this matrix. So I did 2 edges on the left and 1 edge on the right. One of them on the left, the nail, when I removed it, it somehow got embedded a little bit underneath the nail plate itself. So this is my concern. It somehow twisted around a little bit. I think when I was using a freer to lift it out of the nail groove, it kind of pushed underneath a little bit. And so my concern is I did the sodium hydroxide for the matrix, and the concern is, did it go underneath the nail plate, and will that affect the matrix further over instead of just in the edge? So I told her about that, and we'll see how it is in the future. Another was a 27-year-old girl, Swift number 2. She brought her mom this time. She actually asked me to numb her up, and so I dropped it down from 8 to 7 for the Swift for the intensity, and I still did 6 in each location. But I realized if I don't touch the skin as much, it doesn't hurt as much, so I don't press as hard, and also if I squeeze the foot, squeeze the skin around that, it helps better. And then the last patient of the day was a EPAT number 1 for plantar fasciitis, and she also got orthotics. So this is the one I scheduled a couple weeks ago for this. This is EPAT number 1, and the orthotics were already scheduled. And this is probably my MVP because she scheduled all 6 shockwaves because she's been dealing with plantar fasciitis for a long, long time. Okay, once again, I hope you guys enjoy this. If you do, please like it on whatever device you're listening to, and please share it with others so others can kind of know about this. And if you have other topics or things you think would benefit others, share them with me, and I'll share them on this podcast. Thanks.